Today's edition of Mac Voices is supported by MacVoices Magazine, our free Flipboard magazine that brings you some of the best Mac, iPhone, and iPad productivity tips on the web. High in signal, low in noise, just like MacVoices, MacVoices Magazine includes information on how you can get more out of your Apple technology. Subscribe at macvoices.com/magazine or search for MacVoices Magazine on Flipboard. Welcome to Mac Voices. This is a talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, this time we have kind of a double-header interview with one guest because we've got a couple really interesting topics to talk about. That guest is Mr. Paul Kafasis of Amoeba. Paul, great to see you as always.
Thank you. Good to be here, Chuck.
So you all just released a product that I find very interesting, especially as a podcaster, but there are a lot of things I'm sure you can do with this. It's called Farrago, and we're going to talk about it in the second half. But the first half, I definitely wanted to have you on and talk a little bit about Rogue Amoeba products and the HomePod. Everybody's out there right now. We're all playing with our HomePods, doing all kind of things and trying to figure out what works, what doesn't, and how to get the most out of it. And of course, when you think sound utilities, you got to think Rogue Amoeba.
I hope so.
So I know you've probably only had your hands on a HomePod too for a few days, but what can you tell us about which products you would recommend using with the HomePod and what they can do with the HomePod?
Well, so first of all, if you have a HomePod and you have an Apple Music subscription, you might be all set. But if you're using anything else like Spotify or any other streaming service, Pandora, anything like that, the product that we're currently, I told you I was just testing about 5 minutes ago, is Airfoil. Airfoil is our tool for sending audio all around your house, and it sends to Apple TVs and Airport Expresses. And then since then, we've enhanced it to work with Bluetooth devices and Chromecast devices. And the HomePod is an AirPlay output. So iTunes will see it as an AirPlay output, and your iOS device will see it as an AirPlay output. So you can send audio from iTunes and from your iOS device. But on the Mac, if you are playing audio from anywhere else, from Spotify, Pandora, websites, any audio on your Mac, Airfoil will enable you to send that audio out to your HomePod.
And that's something I think that a lot of us are looking at, since right now, as you said, the HomePod only functions natively with Apple Music.
Yeah, I have a very large music collection, and it's in iTunes, and I use home sharing so that I can access it on my Apple TV. And, that's built into iTunes. So my music is available on my Apple TV. It's available on my phone where it's synced to. But I don't use iTunes Music, and I don't use Apple Match, or iTunes Match, rather. I don't use Apple Music or iTunes Match. The names are sort of confusing. Yeah. I don't use either of the services. So when I set up the HomePod, I did not have any music that I could play to the device. I asked Siri, I shouldn't say it because it's just behind me, but I said, hey, play some music. And she played some music that I recognized, but that was not anything that was obvious to me where it was coming from. And it took me a little while to realize I had her skip a few tracks, and it was pulling music from my iTunes purchases. So over the years, I've bought not a whole lot of music from iTunes, but maybe probably about 50 to 100 tracks, test tracks, different things I needed, whatever. And that's what she'll play if you don't have an Apple Music or an iTunes Match subscription. So it's a little bit locked down right now. There's not a whole lot that it can do if you're not deeply into the Apple Music ecosystem. And so fortunately, that's what I've been testing, and that's what the current version works with the HomePod. We're looking to ship a couple updates later this week that will have a little bit better integration with the device, but it does enable the device to play a whole lot more audio than originally than it ships with, basically.
Something I really hadn't contemplated until just right now as far as Airfoil goes. Can I take Airfoil and use it to send something I'm playing with Quicktime Player?
Yep, absolutely. So okay. Airfoil will take from just about any application on your Mac. A QuickTime Player is one. The biggest one is definitely Spotify. That's definitely the biggest use case, is people playing Spotify on their Mac and sending it out. But QuickTime Player, Safari, Chrome, anything that's playing on your Mac, you can pull the audio from and pass it out. Why QuickTime Player in particular? Well,
that's a great question, and I have. It's a long story because it has to do with how I organize my music, but I have certain tracks that I don't want in iTunes Specifically,
Okay.
I don't mind saying bootleg recordings, live recordings, recordings of FM broadcasts, that kind of thing. That it's a bit of a waste of space and also a bit of a hassle in iTunes. So I just keep those separate. And when I want to listen to one, I'll fire up something like QuickTime Player and play that. Really hadn't thought about it until this second about how would I get that to the HomePod. That's the way you do it.
It's definitely it's the tool for getting audio out to all these AirPlay devices and other devices. And again, like I said, the HomePod it just sits there as an AirPlay receiver, so it's accessible to Airfoil to send audio to it.
Okay. Any other of the Rogue Amoeba products that are applicable to the HomePod and people's unusual uses or potential unusual uses for it?
Well, I shouldn't say no because, like you said, people. We have tens of thousands of users, and they're constantly doing things that surprise me. But off the top of my head, the way that you would use the HomePod with any of our products would definitely be having Airfoil send audio directly to it.
Okay.
I mean, the thing that we're sort of trying to tout, and as I said, we'll have some updates later this week. But last year, when Apple announced AirPlay 2 and the HomePod, they talked about sending to multiple devices at once, and that's something that Airfoil has been able to do for almost a decade at this point. And it can send to multiple HomePods if you're fortunate enough to have purchased 2 of them. You can send to multiple HomePods in sync. You can send to an Apple TV and a HomePod in sync. So there's actually a whole bunch of functionality that Airfoil brings to the table with the HomePod. The other one, we just had a user writing to us who was, I don't know, you've played with the HomePod, you said.
Oh, yeah.
Have you really listened to some music with it for a while?
Yes, that was pretty much my weekend.
Yeah, exactly. And it sounds great, but it's pretty bass heavy. And we had somebody who said, I got a HomePod and I actually want to turn down the bass on it. And I said, all right, well, you paid $350 for a speaker that's designed to give you some bass, but maybe you're in a small apartment, maybe, somebody's sleeping, whatever. And Airfoil actually has an equalizer built in. And I was looking at it because I did not remember, but we have some presets, and one of them is bass reducer, which was perfect. So I was able to write back to this guy and say, pop it into Airfoil and turn down the bass with the equalizer. It's literally 2 clicks to get there. So it's something where we're hoping that Airfoil will fill a whole lot of different gaps for people with this new device.
This is fascinating. And I don't want to take us off track, but this is one reason that you should listen to reviews or read reviews, but don't pay 100% attention to them, because I find the HomePod to be a little light on bass.
Okay.
For what I listen to. So, figure it out. It's not heavy on anything. It's just I would like a little more bottom end, not the kind that, thumps, but that just fills out the bottom end. So, figure it out. It's all in your ears and what you're listening to.
I was just going to say, everybody's ears are different, and everybody thinks it sounds different in some way. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about what your impressions are of the HomePod, and if you have any of the other smart speakers, how do you feel they compare?
Oh, so yeah, this is the first listening device I've brought into the house, and I really only got it because, I need it for work. I need to be able to test it, need to be able to tell our users how it works. And so we actually got one for everybody in the company. We just had our 15th anniversary back in September, and we said, all right, this was a good event. And so as just sort of a little thank you to everybody, we said, all right, everybody, we're going to send everybody a HomePod. So on Friday, everybody got their HomePods, which was nice. But it's not necessarily a device that I would have purchased myself. I haven't felt the need to have something that listens to me and can respond to me. And so I don't know that I need that functionality. And as far as a $350 speaker goes, I have some pretty good speakers hooked up to my TV. And I'd have to look, but a few $100s worth of speakers, right. And they sound pretty good. And so I don't know that I need another device to play music at a high quality level. If I'm doing that, I can send the music to my Apple TV and play it out through those speakers. So personally, it's not necessarily a device that I think is essential or even something that I necessarily would have bought on my own. I'm only 4 days into having it, so it's not necessarily it's not something where I'm saying, oh, this is a total waste, I don't need it, whatever. I find it to be a curious product. More broadly, not just applying to myself, but Apple, I think, has been pretty clear, and certainly the reviews that have come from it have said, this sounds great, but it's really tied to Apple Music, and that's really it. And if you use anything else like Spotify, it's not very good for you. And it very much seems clear that Apple said, all right, we're going to make a great speaker. And then I'm not going to say at the 11th hour, but late in the process, they said, all right, let's put Siri in there because Amazon has this Echo and Google has their Home. And it wouldn't make any sense to ship a speaker that was just literally a dumb speaker that just took wireless audio. We can put Siri in there and it can, do a little bit more. But to me, it's very much a high quality speaker that happens to have Siri. And I haven't used them, but I haven't owned them, but I've used them. The Amazon Echo devices are very much smart devices that happen to play music. And it's sort of coming at it from two different angles. And I don't know that I need either one, but I think perhaps the more interesting angle is the smart device that happens to play music. So I'll be interested to see. I don't know. It's probably in a category that Apple won't break down, so we won't know if they shipped 1 million of them or 10 million of them or what. But I'll be interested to see just how successful it is over time. We'll be able to tell, actually, just based on how many people are using Airfoil with it, just how popular it is. But it's interesting right now, and they certainly can enhance its intelligence with software updates. The hardware is pretty good. It sounds pretty good overall, and it can hear you pretty well. That's all that it needs as far as intelligence goes. As far as functionality goes, it's the intelligence that needs to be brought up such that you can say, set a reminder on my dad's reminders list instead of just mine. Or if you have multiple people in the house, only one of them can have their reminders and their calendar and such tied to it. So there's a whole lot of places where I think it's less than a lot of the other devices that are out there. So yeah, that's a really long-winded answer and long-winded way of saying, I don't know that it's super compelling to me. It's definitely not super compelling to me. I don't know how compelling it is to everyone else, and I'll be interested to see over time.
I'll be interested to see your response over time too, because it does seem like there are two camps. There's the camp that sees it as primarily a music player. And I think your phrase was, that a smart speaker that happens to play music. This clearly is targeted in the former, but I personally have found it very transformative just in a few days. I've listened to more music than I've listened to in weeks, simply because I could walk by and say, and I won't do it, but hey,
exactly.
Hey you, play
right.
this, and it plays it. And so I go about my business. So do
you have Apple Music? Is that
yes.
how you're? Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So and again, so I'm getting a different experience than you are, and a lesser experience because I don't have that. So it's if that is your experience, that's actually really interesting because it's a cheap service to sign up for. It's $10 a month, and for $100 a year, $120 a year, you can just be listening to whatever music you want and just be talking to this device to play whatever you want, and that's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, and something like Airfoil is going to make it more valuable because I do have other music that's not in Apple Music or in my my iTunes library.
Right.
That now I know that if I really particularly want to hear that particular concert recording, that I have only it's an FM broadcast, but I still want to hear it in my HomePod. Now I know that I can definitely send it that way.
Yep.
Good. All right, yeah, we'll check back in a few weeks or a couple months and see if you've become a converter. Do you typically listen to a lot of music, Paul? Are you a big music person?
Like I said, I'd have to check. I think I've got about 20,000 songs in my iTunes library. It's definitely in the 5 digits. It's a large number of of songs, but it's almost all from ripped CDs. I had a huge CD collection. It's still sitting in boxes basically, but I've got about 1,000 to 1,500 CDs. I grew up living near a phenomenally good used record store, used CD store. So I would buy $2 to $5 CDs. So it's still thousands of dollars worth of CDs that now everyone thinks are worthless. But so I have all this music and it's all sitting in iTunes. But I've heard of bad experiences with iTunes Match. So I've been disinclined to sign up for that. And Apple Music doesn't appeal to me just on the face of it, at least, because I have all my own music that probably most of it is in their library, but I'm certain that not all of it is, as you said, that not everything's in there. And right now I have all my music on my phone and I have all my music on my computer. And those are the two places that I listen currently. So like I said, I'm definitely not getting the most out of this speaker, but I don't know if I'm going to change my ways or if the speaker just isn't for me because of that. Yeah, no,
it all comes down to how you listen to music, how you prefer to. And, for you, to your point, it's an easy thing for you to take the music you like that you already own and send it through to your Apple TV and those great speakers. So this may not be for you, but we shall see. We shall see.
Absolutely.
So the other thing we want to talk about this time around is a new product you came out with. I don't want to characterize it, so I'm going to let you explain what Farrago is.
Okay. Well, I can. Well, let's see. Hold on. I'm gonna do a little thing for you. Oh, geez. Hold on. There we go. All right. So Farrago is a soundboard app. That's the simple way of putting it, is that it's a soundboard app. So if people know what a soundboard is, they already understand it. If they don't know what a soundboard is, it's basically a piece of software, or often a web page, that contains an assortment of audio clips, and you click or you press a button and that audio plays. So I just played you a little drum roll. If people are not interested in this, I've got all these sounds queued up. I will not drop in too many little clips. We're not doing the morning zoo here, but it's an easy demo to do, because it fits in perfectly with podcasts, because the intent, or I should say the primary use case we were focused on in developing it, one of the primary use cases, was podcasters, people that want to add a little bit of flair to their podcast, whether it's theme songs, excuse me, theme songs as you're starting the show or ending the show. If you have pre-recorded clips that you want to drop in, you could do your ad reads ahead of time. If you have ads and you want to just hit a button and play that, and you can take a quick break while you're doing that. These are all things you can potentially do after the fact if you are doing a whole lot of editing on your podcast. But in this way, you can play the audio as you're recording and not have to do as much editing at the end. Another good use case we've seen is people doing music podcasts. If they're talking about a song, or if they're talking about some piece of audio and they want someone else to hear it. So right now we're talking over Skype, and I've got this audio playing on my end, and you can hear it. So it's a way to join both. You can join audio from your microphone and Farrago, actually using another one of our tools called Loopback. But you can play that audio to other members of a podcast remotely, so that everybody can hear the same audio and it can all be on the same recording. So yeah, the short answer is a soundboard app that you drop whatever audio in you want and you can play it. It's definitely designed for performances like podcasts. The other large use case was theater technicians and people doing all sorts of live performances where they need to drop in audio. But a quick, at your fingertips way of dropping in audio.
And I would have characterized it as a soundboard app, but I wanted to make sure that was an appropriate term.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something. It's interesting. So this past weekend, we sent a mailing to our user list and mentioned the product to them, and so I've gotten a slew of feedback from people, and I've seen a couple interesting uses that the app was definitely not designed for, and is certainly not perfect for, but somebody who wanted to organize a library that he had of about 2,000 different sounds. And he's doing sound work. He's not necessarily going to use the app for live performances. So he's not necessarily going to have the app open and be hitting keys all the time. But it's a way that he can organize his audio and have access to it, more readily. So instead of just having a folder in the Finder of, 10,000 sounds or even subfolders, whatever, in this way he can more easily see it and categorize it. And so that's one way that it's not quite a soundboard app for him, but it's able to function in a way that's useful to him. But yeah, definitely the primary use case is people that need a soundboard to play their audio on demand.
I hadn't even thought about that. That's perfect. Because
if you need that, I don't know how many people there are that have a library of audio. It's certainly not for music. If you've got 10,000 iTunes songs, it's not a great way to drop. You're not going to want to drop all that in here. But if you're doing sound work and sound design for movies or sound design for radio programs, things like that, it's great. I'm glad we were able to help somebody, even if that's not what we designed the app to do.
Well, you think about, we have iPhoto for photos, we have photos for photos.
That's right.
Sorry.
We've got mail for mail,
you got plenty of cataloging utilities for just about everything, but I don't know an audio cataloger out there. So yeah, that's perfect.
I think Apple thinks iTunes is the answer, and I think if you're somebody doing anything but music, iTunes is definitely not the answer.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if we get a lot of use cases, a lot of people doing things like that, use cases like that, or if that's sort of a one-off that we say, well, I'm glad it works for you. We're really not designing it to do that, but good if it works for you.
You said something there about tens of thousands. How many sound files can Farrago handle?
So that's actually, the person who wrote into us, so let me back up. When we shipped 1.0, it was limited to 1,000 files. And that was one, because Well, the primary reason for that was the limitations on the back end. So we're loading a whole bunch of audio files so that they can be rapidly played. So if you load the app, you want to be able to play the clips and sounds immediately. You don't want to have to wait for them to load. So we had to streamline the back end to hold as many files as we could. And we said, all right, past 1,000 files, it slows down, and we don't trust that it will load these fast enough. This person who wrote in and said, I'm organizing, I think he said about 3,000 different sound clips, told us this. And we said, okay, this 1,000 clip limit was not something we wanted to be in there. It was simply there because we didn't want to have performance issues for somebody. We wanted them to know, okay, if they need more than this, they need something else for now. But so we got that, and we spent probably just a day or two, streamlining the back end further. So currently it can hold 5,000 clips. So that covers, I wish I could remember this guy's name. Let's just call him Josh. That covers Josh's needs for his 3,000 audio clips. And we actually have, in the app, we have a little dialogue that pops up when you hit 5,000 clips now. It was when you hit 1,000. And it says, you've hit the limit right now. Please contact us and tell us what you're doing with the app, because we want to know why you're using so many clips with this. Because somebody doing a podcast, might have 20 clips. They might have 200 clips. They're not likely to have 5,000 clips. Even if you do multiple podcasts, or if you're running multiple theater shows, it's probable that you're going to have in the hundreds, maybe in the couple thousands tops. So if we haven't heard from anybody who's needed to go past 5,000 yet. We'll see if we do. This was the first person we heard from who needed more than 1,000. So it'll be interesting to hear if anybody gets in touch on that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about video producers and people that do special effects for movies. That would be the perfect place to catalog 50 different kinds of phaser sounds, and I'm specifically right now I'm thinking of Star Trek Discovery, where you've got all those familiar sounds that we all know from the TV series that you don't realize really how many of them there are that make it up. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And so somebody doing sound effects in like Hollywood, they could easily hit the 5,000 limit, I think. I'm not sure that Farrago is the tool for them. There are higher end tools that, I think include a lot more library functionality. But we'll be happy to, if somebody's library can fit and it serves their need, we'll be happy to have them, obviously. It's not something where I say, oh, we didn't design it for that, so please don't use it that way. We didn't design it for that, so I'm not sure if it will work well for you. If it does, great. If it doesn't, tell us why not. And we might say, sorry, that's not really what it's intended for. Or we might say, you know what, we can make that a little better. We can make it take 5,000 clips instead of 1,000.
Paul, when I got it, the first thing that impressed me was you've included a whole lot of different sound effects. Some of them are kind of classic, to your phrase, morning zoo kind of things, a drum roll or the wah, 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 wah trumpet or whatever. But okay, so I can use those. I obviously can import my own files in. Well, first of all, before I get off of that, how many sounds do you send or ship with Farrago?
It's a set of, I'm actually looking at it right now because I was just playing with it. It's a set of 25 sounds. There's 5 songs that our designer actually came up with that I'll just play my favorite just briefly. I love it. It's such a good beat. It's literally a 10-second little loop that plays over and over again. So we've got a rock beat, that's called funky loop. And then we've got about a little over a dozen of sort of what you said, the classic sounds, a drum roll, a gong, a slide whistle. And then we've got some ambiance. So I'll just briefly play this. So this is rain ambiance. So if you need, rain in the background. All of these are really designed to demo the app. It's not, if people use them, great. I'm fiddling with them and using them just to demo it on a podcast. But when you download the app, if you have no audio in there, it's not necessarily super obvious how the app works. And here you can say, oh, okay, I hit the D key and it plays the car horn. And so it ships with these 25 audio clips. That's really all we have. I was actually just looking at some of the feedback we got, and we had a couple people that were asking, can they get more sounds from us? Are we planning to ship more sound packs? It's not something that initially was anything we planned. We don't plan to sell sound packs or anything like that. It's really buy the app and bring your own audio in. But we'll have to see what happens if we hear from a lot of people that say, you know what, I need a pack of audio that does such and such. It's certainly something that we can either commission or make ourselves and potentially package with the app or with an update or even sell separately. I don't think that's something we'll be looking to do. The easiest way to, if you don't have your own audio clips, we used a site called freesound.org, which is a library of contributions from probably thousands, at least hundreds, if not thousands of contributors and tens of thousands of sounds. So several of the sound clips that came with it, like the the car horn and the drum roll, we just pulled from there, and they're credited in our about box. But it's fair use, and they have released these for use however you like, commercially, non-commercially, whatever. So there's actually similar to the way that you can often find good clip art if you need it for something. There's actually a whole lot of sound samples out there that are pretty good and certainly useful for background noise, and not necessarily if you're doing something very high quality, you might not want these, but if you're just playing a podcast and you just need a few sound effects, it's a good way to do it. So we link to that website, freesound.org, and then you can also purchase sound packs from people who actually do this for a living and say, here's a happy set of sound effects, and it's somebody laughing and somebody cheering and things like that. So there's a whole lot of ways to get the audio in there. Not even to mention using our products to create that audio. So you can use our audio recorder Audio Hijack to either record off the web or record yourself. You can use Fission to edit audio down to then bring it into Farrago. So it's definitely a tool that sort of fits in with our product line pretty well, and potentially our other tools can help you make better use of this as well.
Yeah, it's always an issue, and it's becoming more important, because it was one thing to maybe take a sound and play it for your local school or church or whatever, but now if you're publishing things to the web, you want to make sure that you have the rights.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm not suggesting you shouldn't have the rights for the other things. You absolutely should. But, let's face it, that's the way things were. But now there's a much broader spectrum. And the last thing you want to get is a letter in the mail saying, or an email saying, hey, that's my sound. So.
Right. Yeah, so there are plenty of good sounds out there. Like I said, we link to a couple of the sites that can help you find them, and then you can certainly purchase for this is not thousands of dollars or anything. It's similar to buying icon art or other art like that, where somebody has put this out there and it's pretty good, and if you want to use it, you can pay for it and have it for your own use. So
yeah. Paul, what audio formats does Farrago accept in?
So I think I'd have to think about it, but all of our products take what I would call sort of the standards, which is MP3, AAC, Apple Lossless, AIFF, and WAVE, and FLAC. So basically definitely the most common formats at this point. It will also take in a whole lot of other formats that no one is using anymore, or almost nobody is using anymore. So I don't have a full list. That's sort of the list that I would give would be, MP3 and AAC and then lossless formats like AIFF and WAVE. But there's a whole lot more that it'll take in, importing that audio and converting it. So if it's not in that list, it's still very likely that it will take it in and be able to play it.
Well, it's an easy app. I mean, you launch it, and once you know what it is, meaning a soundboard, it's a piece of cake to understand. And I thought it came out at a really interesting time, as I'm looking at doing more of it, but I know a lot of people are doing Facebook Live shows and YouTube Live shows. This is a perfect complement to something like that. Beyond just doing a podcast recording thing, if you want to add a little spice to a live show, this is the app. The interesting use case that we sort of had thought about, but definitely hadn't targeted at, was there's a whole lot of game streamers out there. So doing things on like YouTube Live and Facebook Live. Certainly there's other ways that people use that, but game streaming is a big one, and people might be streaming their multiplayer game that they're playing against other people, and if they want to drop in some trash talk or like that sad trombone, when right after you kill your opponent, you play the sad trombone, you're giving them a little bit of trash talk there too. And I think certainly anyone watching that will enjoy that and have a good laugh. So we definitely have some people that I was just emailing with somebody using it with Team Fortress 2. So I think that's exactly what he was doing, was dropping in some sound effects and livening it up a little bit. So there's a whole lot of ways that people are doing live performances, and podcasting is a big one, but also, like you said, Facebook Live and YouTube Live, and it's hopefully something that is useful for all sorts of things like that. Every time we talk, we get into this area of the unexpected uses of your products. And I think it's fascinating, because I know I put products to uses that the designers clearly never intended, because I have a particular need, and it's like, well, that's good enough, or it's
Right.
perfect, one of the two. And I love to hear your stories because they always give me then ideas for things that maybe I could do with it. I'm not going to be streaming any games because, I'm not a gamer, but it makes perfect sense. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something where, like you said, you find the stories fascinating. I find them fascinating. And for us, it's useful because we hear about a story and we say, oh, you know what? Let's target the app a little bit more that way. And what features can we add that will help those people that, will make it work better for their use case. So it's always good to hear from people who are doing things a little bit different. And like I said, sometimes we say, well, we're probably not going to change the app to do exactly what you're looking for, but it's good to hear about, and maybe we'll hear from 10 other people that want that, and we'll say, oh, you know what, this is a good angle or direction to take with it. But yeah, I really love getting the feedback that we get whenever we talk to our users. And like I said, we sent out this mailing and heard from hundreds of people over the weekend who said, oh, this is a great app, or oh, it's missing X, Y, and Z that I really can't use it until I have that. And we keep a huge list of these sorts of things, and then over time, hopefully fill in those gaps and pick up some more of those users.
So how much is Farrago?
Farrago it's priced at $49. We have an introductory price of $39 right now for quote a limited time. We did the same thing with Loopback, our most recent product prior to this. We had an introductory price for I think it was about 6 months, and then it went to what we call the regular price. So it's hopefully a way to get some people into it and check it out now. And if you're interested, purchase it now before the price goes up. But currently $39.
I have to ask, and it would be kind of strange to have it this way, but is there a demo version, or is it?
And so all our stuff is always downloadable from our site. You can always download it, try it out. So you're aware of at least some of what we've done in the past, but we always have limitations on the software that everything works, all the features work, but after a certain amount of time, or a certain amount, in the case of Farrago, a certain amount of audio clips played, the audio quality will diminish. So after 20 clips per launch in Farrago, the audio quality will have noise overlaid on it. And that's just to let you know, hey, you need to purchase this if you're going to use it long term. But if you're still demoing it, you quit the app, you relaunch it, and you get a whole nother 20 plays. So it's something where, we certainly, you and I have talked about the Mac App Store at length, and the limitations of both the iOS and Mac App Stores of not having demos, I think, is very problematic for users. And as a user myself, I think, oh, I'm interested in this app, but I can't try it out. So am I willing to spend money on it and maybe not use it? Or do I just say, you know what, the heck with it, I'll find something else. On the Mac, fortunately, we have demos for everything downloadable from our website, and then purchasable from our website. And I think it's a good service to users to be able to say, you know what, people email us and they say, oh, does it do X, Y, and Z? And I'll say, well, here's your answer, but download the app, try it out. We don't want you to buy it unless it does what you need it to do. So download it, try it out. And when you're sure that it does what you need, then you purchase it. And so we always sort of walk this line of, we don't want to limit any feature itself. We don't want someone to say, oh, I think it does such and such, but I have to buy it to actually see that. So these noise overlays that we do are sort of a good middle ground of encouraging people to purchase it if they're using it, but still enabling them to see everything before they buy.
Well, I know I really enjoyed playing with it, and I love the idea that everyone here should download it, play with it, and if you have a use for it or a need for it, it works for you, great, buy it. If not, it's there should your need develop. And I can think of a lot of different use cases that not everyday use cases, but it's situations where it would just be nice to have those sounds on command, like you say, loaded in. So all I have to do is hit a button, they play, and that's it. So
yeah, it's interesting. We were talking about different use cases for the software that we didn't really intend. Something we hear a lot is, oh, it's a really neat app for that niche, for that group of people that need it, and if you're somebody who needs that. And I think, given how big the Mac is, those groups are still fairly large, and I think they're often larger than people realize. So we had somebody talking about Farrago in a review that I saw somewhere, and it was a very good review, but they were saying, probably most people don't need this, and certainly many people don't need this tool. But I think people tend to underestimate how many different types of people will use something like this, and not just our products, anybody's products on the Mac. People often think, oh, that's a really tiny use case, and I don't know if they're going to be able to keep developing that because how many people need that? But we tend to find out that there's, I don't know how many millions upon millions of Mac users, 10, 20, 30 million Mac users out there. It's pretty easy to have something that if 1% of people need that, that's still a couple 100,000. And if it's more than 1%, then it's even more. And so it's really nice to have these tools that people consider to be really sort of niche products, but aren't necessarily as niche as people think they are.
Just during this interview, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I've been the voice of God for live events, and it would be so nice to just record that ahead of time because you sneeze, you stutter, something happens,
coughing, exactly.
Yeah, it'd be better to just have it recorded and be able to hit the button. Yeah, there you go. Sports events, the extremely annoying at times sound effects that accompany baseball games and all. Well, wouldn't it be great to be able to take that to your kids' Little League and, create that environment if that's something that appeals to you. So again, so many different use cases that you forget. And in my case with the voice of God thing, we're talking about it for sound effects, but there's no reason you couldn't drop in little audio clips to, as you said earlier, and have those play on cue. Please take your seats, or we'll be right back. In the case of a podcast, all kinds of things. Absolutely. So, good job. Nice product.
Thank you.
So, of course, we're talking about getting all the Rogue Amoeba products at rogueamoeba.com. That's where you can find them. Download demo copies of everything. And Paul, I have you on the list. I will check back and we'll see what your HomePod progress has been next time.
All right, fair enough. I no promises, but I'm interested to see how it works for me, but also broadly how it works for everybody. So I'm interested to see if you got a whole list. I want to hear the aggregate review that you wind up with there. Yeah,
well, I think you're seeing it. Honestly, I think you're seeing it right now if you just scan the news feeds for today and probably tomorrow. There are people that are saying I love it. There are people that are saying not so much. There are people who are saying I prefer this. I mean, I know people that, and I don't, this is not intended as a slam at anybody or anybody's product, but I know people that are quite content listening to the music coming out of the Amazon Dot. And
right, which is probably the worst speaker of the line of smart speakers that you've got. Absolutely.
Yeah, and they say, oh, yeah, that's fine. Oh, man, okay, well, my ears are a little better than that. And, so I don't need the $20,000 speakers, but the HomePod's pretty darn good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Paul, thanks so much. It's always a blast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chuck. Good to be here.
Folks, we'll have more about the HomePod, about audio utilities. Paul will be back, and we hope to see you next time on Mac Voices. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Mac Voices Facebook group, and get more out of your Apple Tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us at patreon.com/MacVoices and join these folks who help keep Mac Voices coming to you. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.